Mercury retrogrades are the perfect time to turn our brains inward, to reevaluate and reflect on the plans, projects, and ideas that we've been moving forward with at lightning speed. Until now. Mercury retrogrades always have a way of thwarting our best laid plans and forcing us to backtrack so we can integrate our experiences before moving forward full steam ahead. And with Uranus squaring all of this in the mix, things are way more likely to go rogue. August of 2024 is basically one giant Mercury retrograde lasting from the 4th through the 28th of the month, and we need to talk about it. In this video, we're going to cover everything you need to know to thrive during this Mercury retrograde in Virgo and Leo, including a forecast for all 12 signs. And if you enjoy videos like this one and you're excited to see what your future holds, not just this time around, but all the time, because we do videos like this constantly, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology forecast, tutorial, or update, and share this video with a friend so they can benefit from the guidance that I'm going to be providing to you today. This helps me and my channel more than you could ever know, and I so appreciate the share. And make sure you watch the video until the very end so you can catch a sneak peek of what's ahead for the next forecast we're going to do for the full moon in the sign of Aquarius, which is happening on August 19th. This is a super volatile full moon energy that we'll talk about at the end of the video. And speaking of full moon, new moon, this Mercury retrograde, it stations on the same day as the new moon in Leo, which we'll also be talking about here. And so I'm going to get started with the general forecast for the Mercury retrograde. Please don't skip this because this provides an important context for what we're going to get into when we talk about the forecast for all 12 signs. And so basically what's been going on here is the pre-shadow for the Mercury retrograde actually began on July 17th. So Mercury is moving from 21 degrees in the sign of Leo all the way to 4 degrees in the sign of Virgo, and back and forth and back and forth. And so it hit that 21st degree on July 17th. That is known as the pre-shadow period. And that's when things start to get a little retrograde-y. And so this is where we're starting to move forward with a lot of things that we'll have to backtrack on and reevaluate after August 4th. And so it's very important to be mindful of what's been going on for you between July 17th and August 4th, especially in terms of communications, conversations, numbers, metrics, finances, trade. Those things can all be mercurial as well. Cars and vehicles, especially short distance travel, is ruled by Mercury. And also just what we've been thinking about, because a lot of what comes up during the Mercury retrograde is a reevaluation, a rethinking, a reorienting our brains around something that first came up during this shadow period, like an idea that came to us or a message that came through, or an opportunity that somebody suggested to us that maybe we didn't take hold of all the way, or maybe we did and we took it too far and ran with it without actually organizing our plans and making sure that we knew exactly what we should be doing, when, why, and how. Or oftentimes the other thing that will happen with the Mercury retrograde is that there will be information that's missing. And so that information will come out through that reevaluation process, because we do have to backtrack and go over things again and make sure we didn't miss something during the Mercury retrograde. And that's kind of what will come out during the Mercury retrograde period, which is again from August 4th through the 28th. And so the pre-shadow began on the 17th. And the biggest energy of this Mercury retrograde is going to be at square to Uranus, which we'll talk about in just a second. And on July 21st, Mercury in the sign of Leo, moving direct, squared Uranus in Taurus. This was a pivotal moment. The few days before and the few days after were a time period where our brains were rattled in some way, where our ideas were challenged, where we had to think on our toes, where something that we thought was one way suddenly shifted and became different. We saw that collectively in a big grand scale, but on an individual personal level, think about what was going on in your life at that time. What information might have come in around that time that was shocking or unexpected, that changed things, that took the momentum that you had in one direction and forced you to turn it in a different way. That's going to be super, super important as we go through the timeline of this Mercury retrograde, which I am going to do piece by piece so you know exactly what's coming and when, because there are certain days that are going to be way more challenging than others. And there are certain periods that are going to be way more important that you're going to want to pay closer attention to. And so let's kind of get into that. So the very first thing that's happening, of course, is that we have Mercury stationing on the 4th of August. It doesn't station until, let's see here, 10:56 p.m., but there is a new moon in the sign of Leo at 5:13 a.m. just prior to that moment. This is an important time for new beginnings, but it's also an important time for restarting something, reevaluating. So there's a dichotomy of energy here because this new moon is in the sign of Leo. It's not at the degrees that the retrograde will hit, but it's still in the sign of Leo nonetheless. So there's a lot of Leo energy, and the Leo area of your chart is going to be super lit up, not just now, but over the next couple of weeks. And this is already a very enthusiastic energy. Think about the sign of Leo. It's very heartfelt, very authentic, very expressive, very creative. It's all about putting something out into the world to be seen and recognized and appreciated by others. That is that Leo energy, and that's what we're aiming to do with our intentions for the new moon. And this is also in a sextile with Mars and Jupiter, which is an overly enthusiastic energy. And in the sign of Gemini, we could be overly enthusiastic about announcing something, about sharing information, about communicating and connecting with other people in a certain way. And we might be like super gung-ho about it. And that is, in the context of the new moon by itself, that is a good thing. Like, this is a positive energy. It's harmonious. It's very activating. It's very expressive. There's a lot of forward momentum there. But at the same time, we have Mercury in the sign of Virgo stationing. And so this is a little bit of a different energy, and this is actually stationing in a wide square with Jupiter and with Mercury. And so that shows me that there's something that we don't know or that we think we know that we need to kind of pause or freeze on before we can move forward with that momentum. And so it's never a good idea to like jump all into something at the time of the new moon, although people will be doing that because they don't know better and they don't know astrology at the time of this particular new moon because of the level of enthusiasm. But with this particular new moon, it's like that enthusiasm's there. You want to launch in, but you shouldn't. There's something that you need to plan better. There's something that you need to go back on. There's something that you need to review. There's something that is stopping you either mentally or through maybe a message that comes through, or, it could be any number of things that we will talk about more in detail in your forecast for your sign. But there's something that's blocking us. And so this new moon is kind of like, it's like plunging ahead without having all of the information first, and then having to deal with the repercussions of that. And so that is what happens on the stationary time period on August 4th, and Mercury is going to be moving very slowly around that time. And so you see the most Mercury retrograde mishaps, problems, miscommunications, difficulties, frustrations, usually around the stations, especially around the time that it stations to go retrograde. So a couple days before, and especially during and a couple days after August 4th, that's where things start to get really crunchy. As Mercury moves backward and starts to gain a little bit of speed, it's a little less frustrating and there's more momentum, but there's a certain type of momentum, right? It's more about introspection and backtracking and revisiting things. And so that's the first thing that's going to be going on here. On August 7th. So basically when Mercury stations to go retrograde, it's stationing also in a conjunction with Venus. Venus will be at 0 degrees. This is a beautiful time for harmonious conversation or connection or communication. Even though Venus is at its fall position, there's still an energy here because of that mutual reception between Venus and Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo. There's still an opportunity here to gain clarity through interconnection, through bouncing ideas off of somebody, through an outside perspective. And it's almost like a point where you have to freeze and time is like standing still so you can get that mirror, so you can get that reflection, so you can, really integrate what you're doing with somebody else's perspective. And so that's going to be occurring. And then on August 7th, that conjunction actually comes super, super exact. And so that's an important time for maybe re-communicating something, revisiting an important conversation, connection, or communication with somebody, making sure that you understand all of the details, because Mercury in Virgo and Virgo in general is all about the details. So making sure that you have all of the plans in order and you both understand each other's perspective in a very nuanced and detailed way. That's really what that period of time is going to be about. As we move forward into the month, on August 14th, Mercury will re-enter the sign of Leo. And so this is where we're going to be revisiting the stuff that was occurring during that initial pre-shadow period. And so Mercury will be in Leo all the way until it stations to go direct on August 28th. And we're going to have a little bit of different energy. Where Mercury retrograding in Virgo is more about reevaluating the details and making sure we have all of our ducks in a row. Mercury re-entering Leo is a little bit more creative and expressive. And so it's almost as if there was something that we expressed or shared or put out there that we have to kind of backtrack on and like retract on, right? But there's also another component to this. As soon as Mercury re-enters Leo, it's going to start to become close to that square of Uranus and Taurus. And so Uranus is at the end degrees of Taurus. It's at, 26 degrees. And by the time that time period happens, it's sitting around 26 degrees. And so Mercury is going to retrograde. It's going to square Taurus, and it's going to go Cazimi at the exact same time. And then the full moon in Aquarius is going to activate all of this the following day. And so what the heck does all this mean? So basically, when I was talking about how Mercury squared Uranus and Taurus on July 21st and what that meant, that was a pivotal moment where something changed. Your mindset shifted. You had to think differently about something very abruptly, and it could have been, jarring. Now is a time where you're going to have to revisit that, and you're going to understand it in a different way. You're going to understand it in a better way. That Mercury Cazimi allows you to very clearly understand the dramatic change in plans that you need to make. There's a very dramatic shift. It's not a small pivot. This is like a complete overhaul where you're going to be doing something one way or thinking about something one way, and you already had to change it, and now you have to change it again. And it could be a little bit frustrating, but something related to the change that was made in your mindset, in your plans, or through, a shocking message that came through, something related to that happened in July is going to come back around middle of August, around August 18th, and it's going to become a bigger thing. And Mercury Cazimi allows us to understand it in a way that is very useful, in a way that's very powerful, in a way that helps us in some way. The next thing that's happening is that on August 19th, we have the full moon in Aquarius, which is going to be with the sun in a conjunction with Mercury still, because we're just out of that Mercury Cazimi, which is an exact conjunction between the sun and Mercury. So Mercury's combust again, but it's still a part of this configuration. The full moon is going to be illuminating this and squaring Uranus. And this is the same day, you guys, that the Jupiter-Saturn square is coming exact. If you haven't already watched my video with Shanna Cross all about the Jupiter-Saturn square and our forecast for all signs for that, definitely make sure you do that after this video, because this is huge. This is a big energy that's lasting for an entire year, and it's already in the mix. And the fact that that's happening on the same day that we have this big, explosive, changeable, kind of chaotic energy with the full moon in Aquarius highlighting the Mercury-Uranus square shows that this is a pivotal moment. This is a very important day. And so in the context of the Mercury retrograde, this is a period where, again, more change, more disruption. A lot of people are going to be feeling very anxious around this time because of the combination of energies. The moon always makes people's emotions much more volatile, much bigger. It brings things to light. It illuminates things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to see, which can cause a commotion, especially with Uranus. People are going to be getting all sorts of unexpected turbulence, all unexpected changes, unexpected energies going on around them that could feel uncomfortable and disruptive. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a necessary thing. You're going to be pushed outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to revisit something that you already thought you made changes on, that it's not quite right yet. And you thought it was done. You thought, okay, finally, the changes are done. This is done. This is the next phase of that. The other thing that's going to be happening during this Mercury retrograde is the Mars and Gemini sextile. So that's actually a nice energy. So Mars sextile Mercury is a time where we can actually take action, or I wouldn't say take first action, right? You can take you can take action on something that has already been acted upon. So it's kind of like acting on it in a new way or redoing it in a new way, if that makes sense. So it's not like a first time energy, but taking action on your ideas. This is also a really important time, I would say, especially because Mars is in Gemini, sextiling the Mercury retrograde, to express yourself in a way that's very direct. There's something that you maybe were not super direct about, where you didn't have a lot of confidence behind your words prior to this period, and it caused a problem. You see that now, right? And now you have to actually go in and speak about it in a way that is much more clear, much more direct, very almost like forceful. But that's going to actually be a good thing. It's kind of like you need to push this issue. You need to say it in your way. You need to get your way because it didn't work the first time around. So kind of gently being pushy. That would be a really good way to use this energy for a lot of people, especially if it's hitting you really hard, which we'll talk about. And then on the 28th of August, Mercury stations to go direct at 3:13 p.m. at 21 degrees in the sign of Leo. So Mercury at this time is going to be trining Chiron in the sign of Aries, and then it's still going to be in that nice sextile with Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. This is actually a very positive energy for Mercury stationing direct. I actually really, really like this. This configuration, it looks like it's like a healing process that's coming to light. You're like uncovering something because Mercury is still really slow. It's like stationing to go direct. It's like something is revealed to you mentally on or around this date that leads to a very specific type of healing around Chiron types of themes, which is psychological trauma, wounds, vulnerabilities, insecurities, shame, guilt. All of these things are Chiron themes, and you're going to be able to access it in a way that is much deeper than normal, in a way where it's almost like the moment freezes or time stops and it becomes very clear to you. And then moving forward, you're able to work through this much more easily. So you're pulling something out to heal. This is exactly why on the 29th, just after Mercury goes direct, and while it's still making this configuration in the trine with Aries, or Chiron and Aries, that's exactly why that day is when me and Elizabeth Clark are doing our self-muscle testing and medical astrology trauma healing workshop, where we're going to talk about how your psychological trauma shows up in the birth chart and how that is connected to your physical health and other aspects of your life through the birth chart. And we're going to do an advanced self-muscle testing workshop and tutorial around it, where you can go in and figure out exactly where in the body, pinpoint it very precisely, and what emotions are trapped, where they're stuck, what's going on there. So we're going to dive really, really deep into this under this very specific alignment. So if you want to learn more about that, the link is down in the description below. That's going to be on August 29th. And we're really trying to harness this Mercury trine Chiron energy. The sextile to Mars and Jupiter is also very good. It's like an action-oriented energy. Jupiter is in the mix, which is always a nice thing. And then finally, so kind of moving forward on September 6th, Mercury is going to be squaring Uranus and Taurus. And so that's the final square. So we had something that came up that was shocking on July 21st or around July 21st that shook us out of our comfort zones, changed our mind about something. On the 18th, more clarity came where we had to shift again, but things became clearer as to where they're headed. It's like, I don't want to deal with this disruption, but like I can see now why this might be important. And then on the 6th, it's like where we finalize the change. So it's a big process of change. A lot of it has to do with our mentality, but it could have to do with plans, ideas, other things in our life. We'll talk about it in the all sign forecast. And then the post shadow period ends on September 12th, and then we're kind of out of the woods there. So that's what's going on for the general overview, the general forecast. And before we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, I just want to remind you to make sure you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the next 3+ weeks ahead. And so your rising sign is going to be the most predominant and the most literal energy. Your sun sign will be secondary, and your moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this energy will be more internalized and subjective. And once again, make sure you stick around to the end of the video so you can learn all about what's going on for this really crazy full moon that we touched on a little bit. Well, we're going to go a little deeper there. All right, so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. So for Aries and for Aries rising, Mercury is going to be stationing to go retrograde in your 6th house of health, work, and daily routines in the sign of Virgo. And so for you, this Mercury retrograde, at least until the 14th of August, is going to be very health oriented. This is the perfect time to rebalance and reevaluate your health routines and your health goals. This is a really important time for you to review your nutritional habits, your diet, your exercise routines, and to reevaluate communications with certain people who advise you in these types of matters. This is also a time where you might have to redo or revisit something involving your work or a work-related project. And this is also a really important time where you might have to redo some sort of communication or bounce some ideas off of a coworker or work in harmony with a coworker on a project that you were going solo on at the beginning, where it's kind of like, okay, I actually need another set of eyes on this. I actually need another person's perspective. That's going to be a big thing from August, again, 4th until the 14th. After that period, Mercury is going to retrograde back into the sign of Leo. That's going to be in your 5th house, which is the house of fun, play, spontaneity, hobbies, interests, things that you love to do because you love to do them. And so this is a time where you might be revisiting such things, but this is also a time where there might be some sort of financial disruption. There is something that you want to do, like a project or a plan or a creative pursuit, that there is the barrier or blockage from your perspective is financial instability and financial disruption. And that's going to be coming up for you in a way that's going to allow you to reevaluate the situation, especially as it relates to what was going on around the 21st of July, and come up with a plan, with a clear solution, with something that you can change that's more dramatic in the future that's going to actually yield the results that you want. The other thing that's going on here is that the 5th house is the house of children. And so there could be some disruption that comes up through your children, or a message maybe from a school or something along those lines that disrupts your financial situation. It's kind of like you thought you had this finally mapped out and figured out, and then you get another twist, another turn. And the thing that your child needs or the thing that your child wants is going to create more financial instability, or the financial instability is going to make it so you have to do a lot more finagling to give your children what they need. And so those are kind of the main energies. There could be some like weird communication with romantic partners, especially if you're somebody who's out there dating. I would say that you're going to have the strangest, most bizarre interactions on the dating scene between the 14th and 28th of August. So just be aware of that. It's not necessarily the worst thing, but it's going to be odd, right? You're going to be like, what the heck just happened? Like, these are going to be dates that you're going to be talking about like as stories to your friends well into the future. So if that's something that you're interested in, great. But if you're looking for like long-term committed love and you're serious about, the people that you're trying to interact with and date around with, this is not necessarily the best time. It's kind of like more volatile. All right. And then for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this Mercury station happens in your 5th house. And so that first period for Taurus between the 4th of August through the 14th of August is actually going to be very beautiful for you. There's something that came in that you were thinking about at the kind of onset or in the past couple of weeks, really, because this would have been toward the tail end of the shadow period. There's something that you've been getting messages about, that you've been thinking about, that you've been learning about or trying to learn about, that you are deeply and truly passionate for. And so this is a time period where you are going to figure out exactly how to integrate those new passions, integrate those new ideas, integrate those new creative pursuits into your regular experience. This is also a really great energy for connecting or reconnecting romantically with somebody because of that Venusian energy and because of the fact that it's in your 5th house of romance, and it's going to be sextiling if you are a Taurus rising, your descendant. And so this is a time for rekindling an old flame. This is actually a good time to reach out to somebody from your past or to engage when somebody reaches out to you, because that could be a big thing too, like an old flame, an old hookup that comes back and like texts you. That could actually be a positive thing, either through reconnecting and having a fun time or through kind of resolving the situation and letting the person go once and for all. For Taurus, when Mercury retrogrades back into the sign of Leo, this is going to be a little bit of a disruption to your home life. There's already been a communication or a connection or a conversation or an idea, something that came in that was disruptive to you personally, but also to your sense of stability in the home or in your family life or with your family dynamic. That probably you had a taste of that in July, and it's going to come back around, but you're going to have much more clarity around kind of the why and the big picture perspective of like, okay, where is this leading? What changes do I need to make to create a better situation for myself moving forward during this period of destabilization? Because you can look at it more of like an opportunity. Like, yeah, everything's uncomfortable. This is disruptive, but like, what do I want to make out of this? Like, what do I want to get out of this situation that I can benefit from moving forward through embracing the disruption, through making those changes that are deeply unnerving and deeply uncomfortable? That's going to be a big question with Mercury in the sign of Leo from the 14th through the 28th, especially around the 18th and 19th. There's going to be a lot of change, a lot of shakeups. There could also be changes going on involving your career, your public status, your relationships, especially marriage partnerships and close relationships. And so it's kind of like you can't see it clearly until this moment of the Mercury cazimi. And then even after that, it's like a little chaotic. Like it's not going to fully get resolved until around September 6th. But it will get resolved. All right. And then for Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Geminis, this energy of the Mercury retrograde is stationing in your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, property, and real estate. And this could actually be a kind of a harmonious energy. Like there's something going on here that you've had an idea around, or there's been communication around making changes or doing something to kind of reharmonize and beautify your home, or to create more harmonious and fulfilling relationships with your family members. This is a great time to revisit important conversations with family, conversations that you want to go well, conversations that you want to have meaning and impact into the future. If there is a need to hash out the details with something involving your family, now is a really good time to pause and do that between the 4th and the 14th, especially, around the 7th. This is also a really great time to kind of reevaluate plans for beautifying or making your home life better. And so that could be a good thing to do around this time as well. When Mercury retrogrades back into the sign of Leo, this is going to be not the worst energy for Gemini. You're a little lucky in this regard because it's going to be sextiling your ascendant sun or moon. It's kind of mitigating somewhat the energy of Mars because of that sextile it's going to be making to Mars. And so up until the the 14th, when Mercury retrogrades back into Leo, there might be a lot of like amped up energy, like I need to do this now, like over enthusiasm to the point of like feeling like you're going to explode. Like there's just too much. There's no outlet for it. Mercury retrograde provides an outlet. It gives you the ideas, the plans, the communication, the framework you need to actually take this energy and channel it into something very useful. It could be that you want to channel it into a community project. You want to channel it into a communication project, a blog, a video, like some sort of social media thing, emails, whatever. Maybe you want to start a podcast or restart a podcast. This is a time where you might be able to reflect on that and turn it into something. Also, if you've been having a lot of turbulent communication or turbulent interactions with people, first and foremost, it's probably you, not them, even if you don't think it is. But this is going to help you to kind of like hash things out and communicate more effectively. So it's not just you pushing and trying to get your way and like bulldozing over people, which you're going to be prone to doing right now because you're just very pumped. But this is going to help you to kind of like see things in a way that is going to be easier to communicate to other people. So that way other people are going to be more likely to either help you or step out of your way. The energy with Uranus, though, there is something behind the scenes, like a sense of restlessness or it could even be that there's something working against you in secret, where there's some sort of disruption going on that's a secret. Like there's a thing going on that you don't let other people in on that is very disruptive behind the scenes, and especially on that subconscious, unconscious level, because it's weighing on you. And that could be a little agitating. But for the most part, this is actually not a bad Mercury retrograde period for Gemini. And then for Cancer and for Cancer rising. So for Cancer, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your third house when it stations. And so this is a nice time. This is a really beautiful time to revisit important conversations and communications one-on-one with people, or in a group perspective, like within your community, that could be part of it too. This is also a really beautiful time to maybe reconcile differences or issues involving neighbors, involving your siblings or extended family members. This would be a really great time to kind of take, if you have a vehicle, to take it in to be like evaluated and assessed, just to make sure that everything's okay. Because that could be a really good way to use this energy, like reevaluating or reassessing your mode of transportation. Because Venus is in the mix and there's that mutual reception and it's hitting your chart really nicely, I think that could actually be something that could go really well for you. And then Mercury is going to retrograde back into the sign of Leo, and that's going to be in your second house. Financial disruption, a message coming through that is disruptive to your finances. That could be positive in terms of like more money coming in. It could be negative in terms of like unexpected expenses, but there's something going on here where it's changing things in a way that's volatile and feels overwhelming. Like you have to make a decision really quickly, or you've already made a snap decision. This is the most likely scenario. You've already made a snap decision involving your financial situation back in July. And now you have to change that. It's not exactly what you thought it was. It's disrupted again. And you have a perspective of how you can get out of this, but it's going to take a lot of adjustment, and it's going to take you moving into and embracing the discomfort in order to actually get there. There could also be difficult communication involving money and friends. Don't mix money and friends right now. Do not lend money to friends. That is a big, I think in general, a no-no for me at least, but that's a no-no for you like right now during this time, because that's going to cause a lot of problems, especially moving forward, and into September, you'll reap the repercussions of that. But for the most part, the changes that you need to make financially, it's going to kind of make you make those changes. And it might not feel good in the moment because it is going to cause a disruption. But in the end, it's kind of the disruption that you need to free up energy so you can, create the wealth. You can own the thing that you want. You can make that big purchase. All right. And then for Leo rising. So for Leo, Mercury's stationing in your second house of money. There's something that you have to reevaluate involving your finances or a big purchase, but this could actually be a really good thing. Mercury with Venus and Venus in that mutual reception is good for reharmonizing or rebalancing your budget in some way. This could be good for revisiting an important purchase of some kind. And so, that could actually be a really wonderful way to utilize this energy. There's something, if you spend this time from the 4th through the 14th, just reassessing the way that you save your money, the way that you earn your money, the way that you spend your money, all of these things, you will benefit very greatly when Mercury moves direct, and especially after it goes back into the sign of Virgo in September. For the second part of the Mercury retrograde, when it goes back into the sign of Leo, which of course is your sign, things might be a little bit more disruptive. There is something that you probably said or communicated or shared in July that was disruptive to people around you. There could have also been a disruption or a difficult conversation or some sort of idea that you had involving your career and public reputation that could have caused a lot of a shakeup or the beginnings of a shakeup. That's going to come back around, and it's going to become a bigger thing during this Mercury square to Uranus when it's in retrograde, especially around the 18th and 19th, where it's going to become very clear what you need to do. But also, if you were the one causing the disruption, which you might have been, Leo, Mercury's in your sign, usually when it's in the first house, especially. So if you're a Leo rising, you might have said something that caused the chain reaction, that caused the chain of events that's now leading to the discomfort that you have to deal with. In either case, you're going to get clarity and perspective on that, and it's going to become very apparent what you need to do. And if you embrace that discomfort and that change that you need to make, you'll feel better about yourself and the way you're presenting yourself out in the world, but also you're going to make the changes you need to make to have more freedom, more liberation, much more excitement in your career. So the changes you need to make, or, in terms of your public status or something that you're putting out into the world for public consumption or that other people see. It doesn't have to be career, but that's what's going on for Leo. And then for Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgo, Mercury stationed to go retrograde in your first house, which is you. And so this is a really important time to revisit and reevaluate the way that you communicate, the way that you share yourself, your ideas, your identity with the world. This could also be, a really important time where you're recognized for some sort of idea or something that you said, something that you shared with other people. So being recognized for your communication in some way, and that could actually be really positive, especially if it's something that you're revisiting from the past. Like maybe you gave a talk at an event, and someone's coming back around and saying, I saw that talk that you did at the event. It was wonderful. I would love for you to do something similar, on my podcast or over here or whatever. Or maybe you gave a presentation at work and your boss is like, you did that presentation a couple weeks ago, and that was actually really good. Could you do something similar, on this project, right? So it's kind of like getting recognition. Also, around the time that Mercury is stationing and really into that period between the 4th and the 14th, you're going to be much more charismatic. People are going to be more drawn to what you're saying. If you are having trouble getting other people to kind of see your perspective or view your point on something prior to this time, you can reintroduce it, because people are way more likely to understand and also just be open to it right now. Be receptive, right? That's that Venusian energy. Mercury is going to retrograde into your 12th house, which is one of the hidden houses. There's a secret that maybe started to come out or came out already in July that's going to come back around. And so the repercussions of that secret being shared with you or coming out and you sharing it or it just being exposed in some way, that hasn't ended yet. And so it could be that somebody shared a secret information with you, again, around the 21st of July, not necessarily on it, but around that time period. And something about that is coming back around and it's kind of disruptive in some way and it's weighing on you. There's also something that you might have started studying or learning about or investigating behind the scenes that's very unusual outside of the box. Maybe something very esoteric or religious in some way because of that ninth house connection, that you're going to be kind of shocked once again by new insight and new information that comes to light by deepening that study or reviewing what you've already learned around this time. And then for Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libra, this energy of the station is happening in your 12th house. So from the time period of the 4th through the 14th of August, this is really a time of deep introspection, rest, and reprieve. Rest your brain. That is really what this is telling you. Take a mental vacation, meditate, journal, reflect, like just turn inward as much as humanly possible around this time period. And so many rewards will come from doing that. And then as we move into later in this period here, after the 14th of August, Mercury will retrograde back into your 11th house of friendships. You're going to be revisiting old connections, old friendships, old partnerships even. This is a really important time where an important communication could come in that could remedy or resolve some sort of issue involving your friends because of that Mercury Chiron trine that's going to be happening toward the end around the 28th. So it's kind of like maybe you had a bad like fight with a friend, or you had something that like triggered you in some way. And it comes back around, but it comes back around in a way that you're much more easily able to see the other person's point of view and they to see your point of view, and things can be healed and resolved. And so there's something here where there's a healing through especially friendship connections and relationships. But there's also going to be some very interesting and shocking and revealing communications that come in throughout the month, especially around the 19th. And so thinking back to the 21st, if there was a message that came through about a friend or from a friend that was very jarring, this energy might come back around in a new way to give you a different sense of perspective and cause you to have to change something about that relationship. And then for Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, group associations, networks, and people that you surround yourself with by choice. I actually really, really like this. This is in a beautiful, harmonious trine with your descendant. This is one of the best, most beautiful times to communicate really well, to recommunicate ideas with friends or with your partner or just with anyone in general where there was a misunderstanding and you want to resolve it and recreate harmony. This is one of the best times to do that at the start of the Mercury retrograde from the 4th through the 14th. You're going to have really wonderful communications where it's like you tried to broach the subject before and it just did not work. And now all of a sudden, everything is opening up and that communication is happening and flowing much more easily. Later in the month, though, it's almost like the exact opposite. There's some sort of disruptive energy or disruptive communication that came through your partnerships or through your like bosses, superiors, somebody in a position of authority, or some sort of idea that you had for your work that met with resistance or that caused disruption for other people around the 21st of July. That's coming back around, especially near the 18th, 19th of August. And that's going to be disruptive again. You're going to have to change your mindset or change your narrative or change your story when it comes to your career and what it is that you're trying to accomplish and put out there around this. And you might have to change your mindset or change your communication or kind of flip-flop on something that you were maybe having it out with a partner or a business partner or somebody in your life. This disruptive situation does not fully get resolved until September 6th or around September 6th, where you're going to have one more period of disruption where you're kind of restabilizing it. And it's going to be harder for end degree Scorpio risings. So anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees versus the earlier degrees, you're not going to really get that chaos energy quite as strongly. All right. And then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. For Sagittarius, this energy is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation, public status, your legacy that you leave behind after your working years and beyond. And so this is actually a really beautiful time where something that you've done in the past couple of weeks comes back around and you get recognition for it. Something that you shared, something that you created, a project that you were working on, especially if it involves communication, or maybe you actually put something out there like a resume or something like that a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, and you get a call back finally and you get actually some recognition on that. But there's something that you put out there or that you shared when it comes to, especially your career, but if you're not working, when it comes to just for public consumption, or when it comes to a communication you had with somebody in a position of authority, that comes back around and you get to revisit it, and it actually could be a really positive thing as long as you're not too overly enthusiastic and pushing too hard. Like you could take it too far and, scare whoever it is away and scare the opportunity away. So you want to make sure that you're kind of paying attention to the details and not like lunging in too crazily. The second part of the month, or the second part of the Mercury retrograde for Sagittarius from the 14th through the 28th, is going to have Mercury in your 9th house. This is actually not the worst thing. There could be a need to revisit something involving travel, or travel plans, or having to revisit or change something involving your education. There could be something that came up where you got a message that disrupted your plans or disrupted something involving higher education, where all of a sudden you have to change it again, like it comes back around in a similar but different way, and you have to change things again or change your mind again. This could be you having to change plans when it comes to some sort of big important travel where it got disrupted and now it's being disrupted again in a really big way, and it's kind of like all over the place. This could also be you having to change your mindset and belief system around something, especially involving health, and that could be like a shocking, jarring situation to you mentally in particular. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, Mercury stations to go retrograde in your 9th house, which is the house of your beliefs. It's the house of your ideologies. It's the house of your perspective that shapes and frames your reality. And this is you kind of getting a renewed perspective on something, or a renewed understanding or a different understanding of an ideology or philosophy that you hold dear. This could also be a communication coming in from somebody in a foreign country or somebody at a distance that could be like revisiting, and it could come back in a way that's more harmonious than the first time. Like maybe the first time it didn't work out, and this time you're revisiting that connection and something different is happening and there's more harmony within it. This is a really great time for you to reshare important information, to teach something again, and people are going to actually get it this time around if they didn't before. And this is a really beautiful time to revisit like travel plans to a place that you've already been to before. Like maybe you went somewhere and it didn't work out exactly how you wanted it to. And so you go back and you actually travel to that location between the 4th and the 14th. And it's like, oh, wow, this is actually amazing. Like I actually got to see all the things I wanted to see, meet all the people I wanted to meet. How wonderful is that? And then for the second part of the month, you're going to have Mercury retrograding into the 8th house. This is where things get a little dicey. So the 8th house is the house of not just like, financial stuff, that's part of it, but it's the house of trauma. It's the house of psychological issues. It's the house of our deep-seated fears and anxieties that stem from our early experiences. And so something could be coming up around this time period that's very triggering for you. It could have already come up, like especially around the time of July 21st, where it doesn't mean that something bad happened, but something in your environment, something in a situation, something in the way somebody spoke to you or looked at you was triggering to you, and it caused you to become very reactionary. It caused this volatility. That type of situation, energy, theme could come back around if that was the case. There could have also been an important communication that was shocking or unexpected around death, or literally somebody passing, and there could be another communication, another saga to that comes up around the 18th or 19th, where there's something else that you have to change or deal with. There could also be some sort of disruption going on involving your finances. And so that is something that could have come around on the 21st, where there was something being hinted at, where something needs to change involving joint finances, taxes, inheritance, debt, other people's money. Maybe you got an unexpected bill in the mail and now they're like coming after you with collections the second time around, or, you have to figure out a new way to resolve or change things or move your money around. And so that could be a part of this too. But it will fully resolve. It just won't fully resolve until around September 6th. And so you're going to have to just embrace the discomfort and figure out very outside of the box and innovative ways of fixing whatever's going on financially. If it is a negative disruption, it could also be that money comes in through like an inheritance or something like that, or through an insurance payout. And then all of a sudden you have all this work you have to do. Like maybe your house flooded and the insurance money finally comes in and it's like, all right, bam, 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 we got to go do it. And that could be, a part of it as well. All right. And then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this energy is happening in your 8th house when Mercury stations. This could actually be a really important time for healing. So this is an important time to reflect on the trauma and the triggers and the fears and the anxieties that hold you back and hold you captive. This is about what is holding power over you mentally and how you can mentally work on releasing that. If you've gone to therapy in the past, this would be a really great time to revisit that. This is also a really great time to reconnect with a financial advisor or somebody who helps you with investments or insurance or something along those lines, because there's something here that you need to revisit or tweak or figure out the details about. Like maybe you didn't read the contract well enough the first time around, and now you need to go back and do that with your insurance policy. Or maybe you need to revise your will, revise your living trust, whatever it is. This would be an optimal time to do it between the 4th and the 14th of August. After that period, you're going to have Mercury retrograding into your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. There was a disruptive influence that came in around the 21st of July around your relationships, especially family connections or one-on-one close connections with family members or with your spouse or significant other. That could be a big part of it too. Or there could have been a disruption involving like a contract or an agreement with your home or your place of living. In either case, whatever it was that came up for you around that time is coming back around. You're going to get much more clarity on it and you're going to have to revisit it. There could be a really disruptive communication that comes in from a family member that throws you for a loop and causes things to kind of become chaotic because it forces you to have to change something or do something or react in some way. Just know that part of this is going to lead to a big, profound healing, especially if you're able to talk it out with that person. But it's not going to resolve right away. It's going to take until around or after September 6th for you to fully come back into a more stable place with that person, with that situation, with that living situation. There could be a message that comes in that causes you to have to change that too, but it will resolve. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your 7th house of relationships, and it's with Venus. This is a really great time to revisit an old conversation with a partner where it just didn't work out, or renegotiate something. This is a really great time for renegotiation for Pisces, especially if you're a Pisces rising. So if there's something that you didn't get the terms you wanted, or now you're going back and reevaluating it and you're like, this isn't what I thought it was, we need to change this. This is the time between the 4th and the 14th to adjust that. It could also be the time to renegotiate things involving like literally your marriage partner, or to revisit conversations about something that you need or that you want to do together and kind of change the plans or change the terms. And then when Mercury goes retrograde from the 14th through the 28th, when it's in Leo, it's going to be in your 6th house. There is a disruption coming involving your work, your daily routines. It's going to be very, very hard to stick to any sort of routine. Think about what was going on around July 21st and how disruptive that was to your day-to-day experience, to your work, maybe to your health, or maybe there was something that came in, like a message that involved you needing to take on some sort of caregiving role or help someone in some way. That's coming back around. And that disruptive communication is going to show up again in a different way, maybe from a different person, from a different perspective, but you're going to have to revisit that and make more changes. This is a very pivotal time to make changes in your health. So if you want to figure out what's going on with you physically, if you want to fix what's going on with you physically, you're going to have to make some dramatic changes, and you're going to have to listen to advice. You're going to have to listen to ideas that are very outside of the box for you and very uncomfortable for you in order to figure things out, in order to get your body to the place where you want it to be. And that's going to be a big part of this Mercury retrograde. Like something that you just rolled your eyes at before when it comes to your health and, what you know about your body and how you take care of it, you might be looking at it in a different way and saying, this is so weird, but I think I have to do it. And I know it's going to be hard and disruptive, but I know that this is what my body needs. That could be a big thing for Pisces people as well. And so that is the forecast for all of the signs. Next 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aquarius, which is going to be squaring Uranus. We touched on that a little bit in this video, but that is going to be a huge pivotal moment of massive dramatic change overall and for a lot of people, especially because that Jupiter-Saturn square is happening at the same time on the same day. And that is a big moment, a crisis of manifestation, a crisis of moving forward with something that was initiated back in December of 2020. This is the first square in the synodic cycle of Jupiter and Saturn. And so this is a pivotal moment of coming into some sort of resistance from something that really started to unfold around that time period. And we have this Uranus energy with this T-square to the full moon in Aquarius that is causing a major disruption, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frazzled energy and friction. And so around this period, there's going to be a lot of shift going on. It's not just something that impacts us then, it impacts us for a long time to come. And so we will talk about that in the video in just 2 weeks. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that astrology update or any of my tutorials. I hope to see you in the workshop on medical astrology and muscle testing on August 29th. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.